Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Rural Rapport. We're going to wait just a minute or so to allow a few more people to join our live stream. While we wait, please say hello in the chat box so we know you are here with us today. Today we will be going over an important topic for business owners throughout the state. And it looks like we might have some people joining here. So we'll get started. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Campos, and I'm the Women's Business Center Director for the Center for Rural Affairs. As I mentioned, today we will be covering an important topic for business owners throughout the state. We will be talking about the Nebraska Advantage Microenterprise Tax Credit. Earlier this year, the Nebraska legislature approved legislation expanding this tax credit. So I will be covering some Q&A alongside Center for Rural Affairs Business Loan Specialist, Sam Tulp. Hello, Sam.
Good afternoon, Jessica, and everyone joining us on Facebook this afternoon. I am looking forward to talking a little bit about this tax credit and answering some questions that the audience may have. So thank you for having me today.
No, thank you. But before we get started, let's go over some housekeeping notes. Once again, let us know when you are here by saying hello in the chat box, which is being monitored by one of our colleagues. Also, feel free to ask questions anytime during our live stream in the chat box. And if you would like to learn more about this and other topics as well as the Center for Rural Affairs, please don't forget to visit our website at cfra.org. A little bit about the Center for Rural Affairs. The Center for Rural Affairs has been a leading force engaging people to create a better rural future since 1973, with our main office being located in Lyons, Nebraska. We fulfill our mission through services and programs focusing on agricultural, farms and communities, rural policy, and small business development. So again, I have Sam with us today. He is a business loan specialist for the Center for Rural Affairs, assisting me in covering some facts and going over some of the questions business owners are asking about the Nebraska Advantage Microenterprise Tax Credit. So once again, Sam, thank you so much for joining me. And I think anytime we mention or talk about tax credit programs, business owners either get a bit hesitant or want to learn more, but may not understand the qualifications of such programs. Would you agree with this, Sam?
I would definitely agree, Jessica. I think for especially small business owners, it's really important that they are keeping an eye out for programs like this one, but it can be difficult with the number of tax credit programs available, small business authority assistance. But we are focusing on the Microenterprise Advantage Tax Credit today because it really is an important thing that can be assisting a number of small business owners throughout the state. And I think that in my experience working with a number of small business owners across Southeast Nebraska, there isn't quite a lot of awareness about this tax credit program. And it's a refundable tax credit valued at up to $10,000, which means there's a big benefit that you could get. And sometimes it is hard to apply for that tax credit now, knowing you won't get it until later. But we're going to talk a little bit today about things that business owners can be doing to prepare right now so that they can get that money down the road. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So as you're mentioning and talk about it, first question, Sam, is who was this tax credit program designed for?
Of course. So the Nebraska Microenterprise Tax Credit was designed for small businesses that have fewer than 5 full-time equivalent employees. So that would be the definition of the microenterprise for the tax. This tax credit is meant to support their expansion, their growth, helping them employ more people. So the way it works is that a small business has new investments, and those new investments can be eligible for up to $10,000 as a tax credit, paying you back for those expenses you put into your business. So I think it's a really useful tool, especially for startup businesses, to help reduce some of those startup costs right there at the beginning of you starting your business. And like you mentioned, Jessica, the Nebraska legislature voted to expand this tax credit recently, meaning that for people who have previously qualified, they've actually increased the lifetime cap for this tax credit up to $20,000, meaning it's still a great program for people who've already taken advantage and for new people who are looking to get started on their small business or who have been making some expansions during the pandemic.
Excellent. So now that we know who it was designed for, who is eligible for this microenterprise tax credit?
Yes. So any business, like I said, with 5 or fewer full-time equivalent employees that is operated here in the great state of Nebraska can be eligible, but farmers who have a net worth of less than $500,000 are also invited to apply, and applicants will be required to use E-Verify, a federal electronic verification program, if they do have employees for their business. Now, if you're a sole proprietor who owns your own trucking company and it's just you, you would not need to E-Verify in that case. So it's very important that you also look at the application guide online, which we'll be posting in the chat box for you, just to make sure that you're reviewing all of those requirements. Now, there's also some people who are excluded from the microenterprise tax credit, and I want to touch on that just for a moment. If there are small businesses that, or you're an individual who is required to hold a license to conduct your small business, like a lawyer or a realtor, those types of entities would not qualify for this tax credit. So it's really focused on those small businesses with 5 or fewer employees operated here in the state, and who have been making new investments into their business in the hopes of expanding it.
Thank you for clarifying that. That was one of the questions that was asked many times. So thank you for clarifying that. Our next question is, which investments qualify for this tax credit?
Of course. So I've talked about new investments, but to really define what those things include, the state of Nebraska has issued some guidance, and they say that things such as leasehold improvements, the purchase of new depreciable assets, repairs or maintenance to property owned by the business, as well as advertising and legal and professional services are all forms of new investment. They are all ways that you are working to expand or grow your business, and those are the types of things that you can be reimbursed for through this tax credit program. There are some reporting requirements as well, so it is important that business owners are keeping track of what those new investments they're making are, as well as being able to explain how those investments will help them grow their business here and in the future. So it's very important that you are kind of keeping track of that information now so that you can report it and make sure that you are getting, like I said, those reimbursements for the great work that our small business community in Nebraska does.
Excellent. So now that we went on the qualifying, what are some non-qualifying expenditures, Sam?
So what's really great about this program is most investments can be considered qualifying, but one of the big requirements is that it must be new investments. So things that would be excluded are just things like your rental payment if you lease a business office or a retail space. Any of those continued recurring expenses that are just keeping the lights on for your business. This tax credit is really focused on making sure that we are assisting owners grow. If there is assistance that business owners need in order to do things like keep the lights on or maintain their current level of business, there are definitely other programs at the center or through the state of Nebraska where they can seek assistance. This program's focus is primarily on the growth of small businesses. So that's really the biggest consideration that you need to look at when you are applying for it. But the list of qualifying expenses is pretty broad, meaning that if there's something you've done this year differently from last year, that is probably a new investment that you've made. And I know during the pandemic, a lot of business owners have been forced to become creative to invest in new ways to make sure that they can address this changing climate we live in. So I think that people will be surprised just how much of their business activity would be covered by this tax credit.
Excellent. This is great information, Sam, but it has been a lot of information in a short period of time. So what we're going to do, we're going to see if there are any questions coming through in our chat box. And if there are any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them at this time or also follow up with you. So we're going to give it just a few seconds, see if any questions come through.
And personal questions can also be emailed to me at samt, like tomorrow, at cfra.org. That way, if you are a small business owner with a specific question and you don't want to ask it on the Facebook Live, please feel free to reach out. The center was involved in helping get this legislation passed, so I definitely have some good information I can share. And if there are questions about qualifications, we're definitely willing to look at that with you as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. So I don't see any current questions. Is there anything you would like to say before we close or in closing, Sam?
Yeah, so in closing, I'd like to tell any small business owners out there that before you apply, it is really important to determine your eligibility. You can use the information that the Department of Revenue has posted to their public website. We'll make that information available as well to you. And if you're still unsure, you can contact me or you can contact the Department of Revenue just to get further clarification on the guidelines. And then second, I would start preparing for this application process now if it's something that you think you'll be interested in. You can start working on gathering some of the required documents that the state of Nebraska will want to look at. That includes recent tax forms for yourself and your business, any business registration documents that you may have, payroll registers as proof of 5 or fewer employees for the business, as well as any operating agreements and additional documents that may be required according to that application guide. So it may be helpful too, but not required, to seek the assistance of an accountant possibly or another professional. Applications ultimately are submitted to the Nebraska Department of Revenue, and you can visit our website or theirs for additional information on what that process will look like. And then if you have questions, like I said, please reach out to me directly. Email me at samt, like tomorrow, at cfra.org. And we'll be putting this information in the chat box so that everyone has access to it. But I would just like to thank everyone again for their time this morning, for tuning in, and for helping grow our small business community here throughout Nebraska. We want to continue to support you, and I feel like this piece of legislation shows that the state of Nebraska is really interested in those small micro enterprises. There is money available to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Sam. Also, I'd like to say, don't forget to follow us on social media. We are here on Facebook, Twitter at CFRA, Instagram at Rural Nerd, and LinkedIn, where we continually share resources and promote events that we are hosting, such as this one. Also, don't forget to visit our website, cfra.org. And we are going to leave it a few seconds here, a minute or so, for any questions. If there are any questions that come through, we will be here for another minute or so. Thank you, Sam, for all of this great information.
Of course, and I've got plenty to share, so if anyone needs information, reach out. And if there are any questions, I'm here for a moment, but I appreciate everyone's time today to think about this.
Excellent. It doesn't look like we have any questions at this time. We will also be holding a Facebook live stream shortly covering the same topic for our Spanish-speaking viewers. So make sure you stay tuned, and we will see you then. Thank you once again, Sam. Have a wonderful day, everyone.